Hi guys, Drew back again with Princess Craft. Today we are outside of the shop and on the lot. We are going to be taking a look at the appliances and the operation for the Flyer Pursue by Intech. As always, we're going to start right up front here with the loading and unloading procedure. What we have is going to be your coupler right at the front of the tongue. We would use your jack here. We're going to go ahead and jack that up so we can clear that ball when we go back underneath of it. Once we are centered underneath the coupler, we're going to, of course, lower that back down on top of the ball. Once fully seated, we're just going to slide that back. We're going to pay special attention that we are fully locking this secondary latch in place. Always go back and give it a little pull, make sure you are in fact locked on. I would then go one step further, use a secondary pin to go ahead and pin this back, keep that from potentially rattling loose or coming disengaged going down the road. Underneath that coupler, we're going to go ahead and take our tow chains and cross those underneath the coupler and hook onto the receiver of the vehicle. Now, it is illegal in the state of Texas for these to make contact with the pavement at any time. So make sure you're skating that line of having enough room to make your turns left or right, but not so much room that these may make contact with the pavement. Also, state law in Texas that these do need to be crossed underneath the coupler, so let's make sure we're doing that as well. Riding right next to those tow chains is going to be your emergency breakaway cable. Now, this is your last line of defense if your other tow components were to fail as the two vehicles were to separate. It's going to pull this ripcord or pull this cord, effectively locking up the electric brakes, keeping from a runaway camper scenario. So biggest thing with this is make sure you do have a third separate connection point on the receiver of the vehicle. Keep that away from the tow chains in case these become compromised. We want to make sure that this is going to work properly in the event that you have one of those scenarios. Also here we have your 7-way receptacle. This is going to, of course, plug into the bumper of your vehicle. This is going to give you full function to the tow vehicle's lights, charging system, braking system, things like that. So make sure that this is inserted fully into that bumper receptacle. And again, same with the tow chains. Make sure you're not going to have so much slack that this may make contact with the pavement, but also make sure it's not too tight as well. Now, jack here, operation of that is of course up or down here dependent on the direction. But also when you are connected here to your vehicle with the weight off of the jack, you're going to go ahead and pull this pin here on the side, and that whole jack is going to rotate up out of the way and of course keep that from touch and making contact with the pavement. Up front here we have your nice storage bin. A couple extras that Intech provides is going to be a propane ring here if you choose to utilize that. Now you do have a choice for the cooktop, so you can either install this and use a full 20-pound propane tank with the, of course, included hose and things like that, or you can also just use those Coleman 1-pound bottles, whichever you prefer and think will work best for your needs. All right, so on all four corners of the Pursue here, we have our stabilizer jacks. Now, these are for stabilization, they're not for leveling. So when it does come to leveling the unit, if we are leveling front to back, we're of course going to use the main jack up front. Leveling from left to right will be done with the tires and the leveling kit. Now this, you don't have to kind of fret over this thing being 100% level. As long as it's comfortable for you to be in, all the appliances are going to function properly and you'll be good to go. So once you're satisfied with your level, you're then going to come here with your included crank handle. Of course, line that up on the jack. You're going to crank that down to it makes contact with the pavement, maybe a quarter turn more just to sure everything up. Same on the way up. No need to kind of overly stress these or really bear down on them. They will tend to stay in better shape longer if you kind of, don't stress them. Also here we have your battery compartment door. Now underneath this sealed battery box lid, you're going to find a Interstate deep cycle battery. That's a group 24 lead acid battery. So that's going to carry a little bit of maintenance. Once every 90 days or so, we're going to physically remove those vent panels. We're going to check the water level and refill with distilled water as necessary. It's going to be best for your battery and overall for the unit. If you make sure you are maintaining that, it certainly will last quite a bit longer. Also in this same compartment here, we're going to find our battery disconnect switch. With any 12-volt system, you're going to find kind of nominal or phantom draws running in the background. That is again how we are going to isolate that battery for periods of long-term storage. Very easy, just a matter of flipping that switch into that secondary position. Up top here we have your battery vent. Of course, again, sealed battery box. That's just where it's going to be venting out to the atmosphere. And then we have your power supply connection here. So this is a 30 amp, 110 volt power supply. This is going to be your included cord, 30 feet in length generally, and it plugs in very easily. So you have two slotted receptacles and one L-shaped. As long as you line up everything properly, it's going to plug straight in. We're going to give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right. That's going to lock it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down, lock it in further, keep that connection nice and secure. Beside that, we have a cable satellite inlet. Just about, every satellite provider and higher end campgrounds will offer a park cable service, geared towards RVers and such. This would be the inlet of those services. It's a standard RG6 cable fitting, and this does just transition through the wall to the other side where you could potentially mount a TV if you were inclined to do so. Beside that, we have a Zamp solar plug. Now this is designed for a portable solar panel, essentially just a direct connection to the battery. You can make your connection here, take your panel out into the sun, directionalize it as you wish, and of course take advantage of that solar charging. Now most of those portable solar panels will have a charge controller built directly into the panel, so essentially it's just kind of a set and forget thing. That charge controller is going to be the brains behind the operation, making sure not to overcharge your battery here. So here we are at the tires. Now these tires, and any camper tire for that fact, is going to be ran at the max tire pressure rating. For this particular unit, it's going to be 51 PSI. Now you can find that stamped on the sidewall of the tire in that more traditional location. You also are going to have a data tag here on the camper, and again, noting the 51 PSI. So just make sure we are maintaining that level of pressure within these tires, because that's what they're rated for, and that's going to give you the highest flexibility on whether the unit is completely full or completely empty. That 51 PSI is going to be a good number. Now also, manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure here of these lugs. They will have been torqued down to 100 foot-pounds here in the shop. The manufacturer recommends that you check and make sure they are maintaining their torque with the first 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. Make sure you're stopping and retorquing those lug nuts down to 100 foot-pounds. Manufacturer also recommends that at the start of each trip thereon after, you are again checking to make sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Of course, very important from a safety standpoint that we keep these lug nuts nice and tight. So here on the rear of the unit, we have your secondary receiver here. This would be great for a bike rack or maybe a cargo rack. Just make sure we're not exceeding that 100 pounds max capacity when we do use that. Now when we go to open up these doors, of course you're going to open up the passenger side door first. That would allow you to go ahead and reach here onto the inside and open up that door. Same on the way out. You are just going to make sure you close this one first, and then of course this one over it. Now your third brake light here is of course a brake light, but it also is going to act like a porch light. So if we go ahead inside and we were to turn this light switch on here, that's going to allow that to kind of light up this outside space. So here we have your batwing awning. We're going to go through how to extend that or erect that, and how to put it away. Of course, I've already went and unzipped it, so we're going to start by flipping that bag over. And of course, we have it buckled in here, so we're going to make sure we unbuckle that. Now, it's worth noting that all of your tent stakes, your guide wires, your lashing, that's all going to be in this bag here. Of course, we're not going to pull any of that out for this presentation, so we're just going to go ahead and flip that up, but that's where that's all going to be located. Now, very easily, all you have to do is grab the top bar and start to walk with it. and the rest will follow out. Now the idea being is once we get to that forward position, and this is going to wrap all the way around the tongue, we're going to take this lashing here and we're going to affix it to the crossbar of the roof rack. Again, not something we're going to do for you today, but you would get the point there. So we're going to take this around, of course go full circle. Now with each one of these bars, you're going to find a leg that is stuck up there on the inside. So we pull that leg down, and each one of these legs is going to be telescopic. So we can set our pitch essentially, and we are then going to tighten. To actually tighten these, you rotate them counterclockwise. Of course, once we've done so, we can go and use the included kit to run our guide wires or guidelines, things like that. Super easy, super quick to set up, and it does provide, as you can see, that full coverage. So when we go to put it back in, very similar to, of course, extending it. We will start with the top bar and walk it back. Making sure we're picking up the next one and kind of aligning them as they're going to sit. And then you have a couple magnets here, so they do kind of stay, stuck there. And this is going to always be the hardest part, is actually getting it back to fit in the bag. Just like with anything, it's super easy to get it out of the box, but not always easy to get it back in. So I like to start with like a triangle fold there, and then I use my free hand to kind of start rolling this up. And again, we're going to try and keep it as tight as we possibly can. And once we've got it in a position where it looks like it's going to fit, you'll want to make sure you don't make the mistake I did and tuck the buckle back behind it. And we're just going to, again, pull reasonably tight there on that Velcro. Now, of course, once we've done that, we just fold the bag over and zip along, and you're going to be fully secured there. All right, so one of my favorite features here on the Pursuit is going to be this pull-out kitchen. Now, Intech has done some redesign on the way this actually pulls out. What they've done is they've added a secondary latch to keep things nice and secure when you're going down the road. So that's going to be your stowed position. Now, if we just pull down on that spring latch and kind of rotate it towards the driver's side in this case, that's going to stay unlocked. So from there, very simply, just open it up here, and we are going to go ahead and pull it out. Does have a locking mechanism here in that extended position. It is just, again, when you want to push that back in, we're going to make sure that we do pull up there on that handle. Now from here, if we take a look here, we have a nice working space here that if we were, in fact, cooking in this space, we could use this right here. If we want more room or to get into the ice chest, we're just going to remove this, and then we can momentarily relocate it on the camper. And this is sometimes slightly fiddly to get that kind of in place, but once you've done so, you're ready to go. Now, if we look further here at the components of the pull-out kitchen, we have your cooktop. So when it comes to lighting the cooktop here, of course, we turn to that light position. Once we've done so, it's as simply as activating that piezo igniter until we actually have a burner lit, and then we can go ahead and choose the intensity of our flame here. When you go to fold this back up, it's important that you do it properly to keep it from being damaged. Oftentimes, if this has settled, because this actually lowers in position down like that, you'll start by lifting that side up. You want to fold that side in first, and then this side over it. Now you also have to kind of lift up on the whole door, again, because it kind of locks into place. That's going to allow that to sit nice and flush down. Now you're going to make your connection for the cooktop here down in this compartment here. Again, if you're using a 20-pound propane tank, you can go ahead and just make your connection here, or extend that connection with the included pigtail hose they have. And also you're going to find a brass reducer fitting that's going to reduce this down to that 1 pound bottle and allow you again to use those Coleman bottles. A little bit of storage here, not too terribly much to speak of, just again some extra storage space for maybe some kitchen supplies, things like that. So here we have your Dometic cooler box. I absolutely love these work great. This is going to run on either 110 volt electricity or 12 volt as those sources present themselves. You can go ahead and utilize them. Very easy to navigate around. Of course, your on-off button here. We have a couple options here through the set mode, setting temperature, setting Fahrenheit, Celsius, things like that, a couple different preset temperatures as well, plus or minus to, of course, increase or decrease the temperature. And this also has Bluetooth connectability, so you can go ahead and download the Dometic app, and that will allow you to further control the unit on your phone. If we go ahead and lift the top here, of course, nothing too crazy. Door is reversible if we choose to, we like it better in the other position. But again, a really cool little unit is going to work excellent for you to keep things nice and cool. One thing to note is make sure when we are going down the road that we are securing that from moving in any direction. We're going to want to make sure we buckle it in and pull that nice and tight. Above that, we have a couple outlets, couple all-weather GFCI protected outlets, nothing too crazy. And then, of course, we have this porch light here. You're going to find that switch right inside the door. We're going to talk about that when we get to the interior. So here on the interior of the Pursue, we have a couple light switches here right into the rear doors. One of us is, of course, going to be for that rear porch light. We already talked about that. The other one's going to be a secondary overhead light switch. And then down below here, we have a standard 15 amp outlet. It is, again, GFCI protected. Good time to talk about the windows here. Now, these kind of utilize that old kind of school bus style window. So you have two spring latches here. You're going to pinch those towards the inside, and you're going to do your best to lift up as evenly as you can. And then once they are at that top position, they're going to fall in a slot and stay open. Above my head, we have your Dometic air conditioner. Now the thermostat and the controls are located right there on the unit. You have a low cool, a medium cool, and a high cool in terms of fan speed and conditioned air here. And then if we look here on the other side, that's going to be standalone fan speed. So same kind of low, medium, and a high indication, but no compressor or just that fan. It also does have an optional heat, so if we were to turn this to that little red dot and then rotate this thermostat to the hot side, this is going to kind of reverse operation and start producing heat. In a space of this size, this is going to work excellent to, again, control temperature in either direction, whether it's hot or cold. Now it does have a removable, reusable filter. Easiest way is to either get your fingernails here back behind this or maybe use a little tool to kind of pry this grating out of the way. Once you've done so, you can't miss it. There's going to be a little netted filter here on the inside. You can go ahead and pull that out, rinse it out. Of course, once it dries, replace it, and you're ready to go. You can see that you can directionalize this. There's louvers on each side. You also can directionalize it straight down. Again, I don't think it's going to matter all that much in a unit of this size, but of course you have the option. Moving on a little further back here, we have another light switch. One is, of course, going to be the porch light there on the exterior. And then we have a three-way switch here in the middle. What that's going to do is, if we had power on the unit, you could see there's lights here on the shelf. If we go one direction, they're going to be a bright white LED. If we go the other direction, they're going to be blue. And then, of course, in that middle position is going to be off. And then again, we have that secondary overhead light switch. Again, not all that far from the other switch, but I guess it would depend on where you're at within the unit if you wanted to go ahead and turn the lights on and off here. Above that, we have your MaxxAir fan control. This also kind of pulls double duty as a thermostat as well. You can, of course, take the remote and directionalize it towards the fan, but you have a fan on-off button here. We have our plus or minus there if we do want to go ahead and set a thermostatic temperature, and this will kick on and off to attain that temperature. If we just want to set a set fan speed, you can of course increase or decrease that fan speed. We can switch directions of that fan as well. We can either bring air in from the outside or kind of create a cross draw here and exhaust that air from within the unit. And then we can open and close that lid, keep that fan running if we wanted to kind of further circulate the air within the cabin here. So here at the front of the Pursue, starting right up here in the corner, we have your carbon monoxide smoke alarm. That's going to run on a 9-volt battery. It's a very important piece of safety equipment. We want to make sure that we are testing that every single time we're getting the unit ready to take out. We want to make sure our safety equipment is in tip-top shape. Of course, you have speakers here on either side of me, and they're going to correspond with the RV Technologies head unit here. Very basic kind of radio. It does have a Bluetooth function, and it does have auxiliary ends. You'll find a service manual with this, although most people I find can work themselves around it. It is, again, very kind of basic and easy to use. We have our main GFC outlet below that. Now that's going to be the reset point. All of these receptacles that we've seen thus far in the unit are going to be on the same circuit. If one of them were to get overloaded, this is going to be the reset point. And then we have a 12-volt cigarette lighter style receptacle here, as well as a couple USBs. That's helpful to maintain any USB-driven appliance or run, again, a 12-volt appliance there that utilizes that cigarette lighter style connection. We then have our fuse panel breaker box here. Everything we see on the right side is going to be a replaceable automotive blade style fuse. Of course, it's going to be my recommendation that you do go ahead and pick up a spare set of fuses, keep them with the unit. And then there on the right side, the left side, you are going to find your resettable 110 volt breakers. Same variant you're going to find in your breaker box at home. So very easy to reset if you run into any issues with that. I did miss the cable inlet. So we saw the inlet of those services. This would essentially be the outlet. If you were going to set up a TV in here, that would be the location to do so. And last but not least, here on the interior, we do have your smoke alarm, your fire extinguisher. Now this is, again, a very important piece of safety equipment, and it goes without saying we're going to want to test that every single time we take the unit out. Very easy to do so. You're going to push this green button down. If it springs back, that means you still have pressure within the unit. It's still working. If that were to stay depressed, it's time to go ahead and pull out and replace. So that just about covers it on the walkthrough of the Flyer Pursue by Intech. This is the 2021 model. We hope you did enjoy the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Thank you very much for your time. We hope you enjoyed it.